Well, gather around, my friends, and let me spin you a tale of political turmoil in the grand halls of Congress. It's a yarn about Representative Kevin McCarthy from the sunny land of California, a fella who finally clinched the coveted role of Speaker of the House after striking out on 14 previous tries. Now, this all unfolded back in January, mind you, and his victory came with a tricky catch, a kill switch, they called it, and Representative Matt Gaetz from the land of Florida decided to flick that switch not too long ago. Poor McCarthy, he lost his job, and that threw his party into a tizzy. Next in line behind McCarthy was House Majority Leader Steve Scalise, hailing from the Bayou State of Louisiana. But, as luck would have it, his bid didn't even make it to a vote on the chamber floor. Then there's Representative Jim Jordan, a firebrand more at ease on Fox News than drafting legislation. Naturally, his bid got a vote, but he couldn't seal the deal. The House Republican clan finally ousted him from contention last Friday. So, here we are, back at square one, just like we were in January, but with no clear candidate for the top spot in the chamber. The result of this little political hoedown is that we got 9 different Republicans jockeying for the job, and that's the heart of the matter, folks. Everyone in that caucus wants the power, but so far, they've not shown much talent for using it effectively. It's been mighty helpful to visualize this speaker showdown, like we've been doing these past weeks. So, we're at it again, using scores of the caucus's ideology and their district's voting trends from 2020. What you see is that, while Jordan was one of the most extreme ideologues in the bunch, most of these 9 new contenders are closer to the middle of the road for the caucus. But remember, this House Republican gang is pretty darn conservative, so being near their middle is like enjoying a cool breeze on a scorching day. In fact, these would-be speakers are a tad more conservative on average and represent slightly less Trump-friendly districts, but it's subtle, don't you know? What's interesting, though, is that all 9 of these Republicans supported Jordan's bid on all 3 ballots last week, and that's not something we can say about McCarthy back in January. 8 of the 9 were solidly in McCarthy's corner all 15 times. The one exception was Representative Byron Donalds from Florida, who had his own ambitions. He's often seen with the group that's ruffled feathers on the far-right side of the caucus. Now, if we overlap the folks who didn't fancy Jordan and those who gave McCarthy the cold shoulder, we've got 6 of these speaker hopefuls sitting in the middle. They're straddling the line between the 2 factions in the caucus, the more extreme and the less so. They're right in the middle of that speaker Venn diagram, I reckon. There are 2 outliers, though, Representatives Jody Arrington from Texas and Dan Moiser from Pennsylvania. Their districts seem to love them some Trump, even more so than the rest of the caucus. These new speaker candidates have another thing in common with their Republican brethren: they all took a shot at rejecting electors who favored Joe Biden during that wild electoral vote count on that fateful January 6, 2021 day. Only 2 out of the bunch, Majority Whip Tom Emmer from the land of Minnesota and Representative Austin Scott from Georgia, didn't join in on the elector-rejecting festivities. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't sympathetic to Trump's grand plans to flip the election. Emmer even threw his weight behind a lawsuit to do just that, and Scott found himself on the Washington Post's list of folks who had their doubts about the 2020 election. So, here we are, my friends, with the Republican caucus considering a whole passel of speaker candidates who mostly, but not entirely, fall somewhere between Jordan and McCarthy on the ideology scale. They're also in line with the caucus majority when it comes to voting for or against McCarthy and Jordan. And they're pretty much on the same page with the caucus majority when it comes to the 2020 election results. But, I'll tell you, if there's one lesson we've learned this year, it's not to be too quick to make any predictions about how the Republican vote for Speaker is gonna shake out. The only thing certain is that the political river keeps a rollin', and we'll just have to wait and see where it takes us.